My voice was meant to cut through the night, a blade of sound forged in silver. Now it is choked with dust. I lie in the dark, a cold, dead weight in a wooden tomb they call a drawer. The air here is thick with the ghosts of forgotten things, the sweet decay of cedar, the faint, papery scent of a photograph of a woman who no longer visits, the metallic tang of a tarnished military medal that has lost its war. My world is a coffin of silence, punctuated only by the muffled percussion of a life that continues without me, without him. Footsteps on the floorboards above, the distant electronic murmur of a television, the gentle sigh of the house settling. These are the sounds of my eternity. I feel the soft, yielding pressure of a velvet pouch I was once kept in, now just a limp shroud beside me. Sometimes the drawer is pulled open, a slice of artificial light, blinding and unwelcome, cuts across my surface. A hand, softer and more hesitant than the one I knew, rummages past me, searching for a spare key or an old battery. The hand never stops for me. It does not know what I am, or what I have done, or what I failed to do. To this hand, I am just a piece of metal, obsolete and nameless. Then the drawer slides shut, and the darkness returns, heavier than before, thick with the knowledge of my uselessness. I do not sleep. I do not dream. I only remember. And tonight, I remember the rain. It's not the gentle patter I hear now against the window pane of this quiet suburban room. It is a different rain, a cold, aggressive, urban rain that fell on a Tuesday, or perhaps a century ago. The memory is triggered by that sound, a key turning in a lock I thought was rusted shut. The rain on the glass becomes the rain on the pavement, and I am no longer in a drawer. I am cold, pressed against the rough wool of his uniform, rising and falling with the steady, reliable rhythm of his breath. His name was Arthur. He was a man made of routine and quiet integrity. His heart was a metronome, a steady beat in the cacophony of the city at 3 a.m. For 12 years, that beat was the only music I knew. He would trace my shape with his thumb as he walked, a nervous habit, a silent conversation between man and tool. I was his only partner on those long, lonely patrols through the skeletal canyons of the warehouse district. The moon was our only witness, its light filtered through the grime of factory windows, painting everything in shades of silver and gray. I knew the geography of his route by the sounds it made against his body, the hollow echo as we passed the empty loading docks, the soft crunch of gravel in the back alley behind the textile mill, the way the wind would whistle its own tune as we crossed the open yard, a sound I always found inferior to my own potential. He would sometimes whisper to me, his voice a low rumble, "Just another quiet one. Old friend," he'd say, and the warmth of his breath would ghost across my surface. I was his confidence. I was the scream he kept in his pocket, the assurance that if the city's predatory silence ever decided to show its teeth, he could scream back louder. I felt important then, nestled in his breast pocket, a silver promise against his heart. I felt the thrum of his life, the quiet power of his purpose. We were guardians of sleeping things, of boxes and pallets and silent machinery. That night, the rain was relentless. It wasn't cleansing. It was suffocating. It turned the asphalt into a black mirror, distorting the already faint glow of the street lamps. Each drop was a cold pinprick. The sound of his footsteps, usually so confident, was swallowed by the downpour. But there was another sound, a second set of footsteps, At first, they were part of the storm's symphony, a trick of the echo in the narrow alley. But they were too consistent, too rhythmic to be random. They kept pace. Arthur stopped. His heart, my faithful metronome, faltered. It skipped a beat, then hammered a frantic, percussive rhythm against me. He turned slowly. The rain plastered his gray hair to his forehead, and through the curtain of water, a figure emerged from the deeper shadows. Leaving so soon, Arthur? The voice was young, familiar. It was the boy, the one Arthur had trained last summer, the one he'd shared his coffee with, the one he'd told stories to. A wave of relief washed through Arthur, and his heartbeat began to settle. I felt the tension leave his shoulders. He even managed a small, weary smile. Leo, you scared the life out of me, kid. What are you doing out here? The figure stepped closer, and the weak lamplight caught the expression on his face. It was not friendly. It was a mask of desperation, of grim resolve. I'm sorry, Arthur, Leo said, and his voice was thin, stretched taut over a frame of fear. They said you were the only one who still did the full route, the only one who would be here. Arthur's hand, which had been relaxing, flew to his chest, to me. His fingers fumbled, cold and wet, trying to get a grip. He understood. Not who was following him, but why. The realization was a colder shock than the rain. It was a betrayal, a violation of the simple, unspoken code of the lonely hours. The boy, Leo, lunged. There was no grand struggle. It was clumsy, pathetic, and brutally quick. I was pinned between them, a cold, hard witness to the grunts and the slipping of shoes on wet pavement. I felt the immense, desperate pressure of Arthur's chest as he fought for a breath he was no longer entitled to. His fingers finally closed around me, pulling me from the pocket. He raised me to his lips. The world narrowed to that single, final objective. I felt the wet, desperate seal of his mouth, the last ounce of air from his lungs pushing into my chamber. But it was not the sharp, commanding shriek I was designed for. It was a weak, wheezing gasp, half drowned by the rain and the gurgling in his own throat. A pathetic puff of air that barely disturbed the night. It was the sound of a question, not a command, a question that no one was around to answer. Then, the pressure was gone. I fell, hitting the pavement with a small, tinny clink. I lay in a growing puddle, the water turning from clear to a diluted, rusty brown. I watched, sightless, as the second set of footsteps ran, fading back into the indifferent noise of the storm. The rain continued to fall, washing his face, washing my silver skin, washing away the evidence of a promise broken. The silence that followed was the loudest sound I have ever known. Now, the rain on the window pane has stopped. The house is quiet. The memory recedes, leaving behind the familiar ache of my own inertia. I have accepted this drawer. It is my final resting place, a museum of one. My purpose was for a single moment, and that moment was a failure. My entire existence was a prelude to a sound I could not properly make. I am a whistle, a simple, silver night watchman's whistle. My name is failure. My memory is of rain. Humans measure their lives in years, in accomplishments, in the families they build. I measure my existence in a single, silent moment on a wet street. I was forged from metal and air, given a purpose to be a warning. But a warning is useless when it whispers. I was born of breath, and I died in silence,